I'm Glenn Saunders with Nuage, and I'll just jump to the section where we talk a little bit about Nuage. So Nuage, whoops, let me go back previous here. So Nuage, and I'm going to hide my camera there so that's a little bit bigger. Actually, that doesn't work because Josh is still in. And so Nuage is a partner with NetSuite, helping to sell and implement the ERP solution. And we'll be covering with Dan, really talking through what challenges he saw, why they moved to NetSuite, what the outcome has been, and also really going back into how that has dovetailed in the past month or so with all the dramatic changes that have come away with it. So with Nuage, we are exclusively partnered with NetSuite. That's the only product that we sell and implement. NetSuite itself is completely cloud-based software solution delivering full ERP from accounting and finance, inventory, manufacturing, resource planning and allocation, e-commerce, all the way through. It's a completely integrated solution, including front office like CRM, as well as retail management. And we work with a variety of customers all across the likes, from Fannie Mae to software companies like EpiServer, who we actually did a discussion with yesterday, manufacturers like Watkins, who have been in business since 1854. We're actually talking with them on Friday to covering the manufacturing solution across all different array. We've been doing exclusively NetSuite since 2011. We were a top partner in 2013, as well as last year we were a top 3 partner in each of those years. We are a 5-star partner, which is the highest classification that you can get with the NetSuite solution. And sounds like we've got some others on, so.
Yeah, we just had Dan join us. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. We've got Glenn here, if you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear everything fine.
Perfect, Dan. If you do me a favor, Glenn is just jumping through his slide deck. If you hit your camera button there, Glenn, you can proceed with the slide deck.
Sure.
And the camera is going to just turn your camera off for the moment, so that way the slides are seen.
All righty.
Okay. And as mentioned, we've got Dan Cronin on. And Dan is the CFO of Regulus Global. He's been the CFO for almost 6 years. We at Nuage have been working with Dan for about 5 years. And when he first started at Regulus, he was tasked with restructuring 4 different corporations and LLCs, 4 wholly owned LLC subsidiaries, and then creating a new LLC holding company, as well as doing all the legality that goes behind that, moving the company from 5 separate instances on QuickBooks onto a new ERP system that could handle all the multiple companies, the international requirements, as well as some of the government requirements with security that they have to adapt to. He's worked across all functional lines of the company to establish rules, procedures, and as part of that, they have grown about 500% since Dan joined, which is quite exceptional. Dan, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Really, no, not really. It's been pretty broad based on, I'm getting some feedback here. Let me try something real quick. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me
now?
Dan,
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, yeah. It must have been something. We'll just have to live with it. Yeah, the company's been around about 6 years, and what you just described is true. You know, we originally started because we occupy very similar space, and therefore are experiencing some of the very same issues today with the pandemic as they are. We've been real fortunate that we've been able to adapt to that because, like a lot of businesses that are out there right now, the core part of their business, and if you were really to look at us as what is our core business, it is we are a global distributor of military tactical gear, and munitions and medical equipment. And so that medical equipment is what is really keeping us going right now, because government offices around the world at this point in time they're just shut down. I mean, I got receivables out there in the millions of dollars that been outstanding for a year, and we can't get the country in the Middle East to get their paperwork together right so that they can go ahead and pay us. So we've had some challenges, but those challenges have really prepared us well for what we're facing right now.
All right. Well, you covered my first question, was a little bit about Regulus and what you all do. And I want to, you kind of set the stage, but to borrow a slide from when Chris and I did a presentation a number of years ago, what, besides the consolidation and the growth, what was it that really led you to evaluate a new ERP solution 6 years ago?
Well, it was a matter, QuickBooks doesn't do a very good job of receiving inventory and then following the process from issuing the purchase order, receiving the goods in, making sure the bill gets paid, warehousing the product for a period of time, fulfilling the contract, and then invoicing the contract. The NetSuite gave us that ability to seamlessly do that. The other thing was that we did have 4 different subsidiaries that were feeding into a holding company. Regulus, the primary company, is the company that all the expenses went through, and that's the primary core business. But everything that we were doing in the Middle East was under a company called DW Global, except that was even separated a little bit more, because everything that we did in the UAE was done under Arc Medical, and then we had this other company called Arc Defense that was manufacturing a gas piston conversion kit. That's it's a drop-in module that went into AR-15 and AR-10 rifles to automatically clean the bolt carrier out after each shot that was fired, prolonging the useful life, I guess you would say, before it jammed up. And we thought we'd do other things with that, but that's just not the direction that it went. So we had those 4 companies, and there was a lot of interaction between the 4 companies. There was DW Global didn't have all the vendor relationships that Regulus had, so there was a lot of intercompany transaction. One World, which is one of the bundles that you can get with NetSuite, allowed for a very seamless means of being able to manage all of those intercompany transactions. And we don't ever intend to pay those back, because we really operate as one company with 4 divisions, I think is probably a better way to look at it. But just the way we're set up, they're all separate LLCs. And there was a tremendous amount of confusion and a lot of missing documentation when we were working out of QuickBooks. So that was really one of the primary reasons that we needed to look at an ERP. And some of the ERPs that we were looking at, we just didn't like the way that they handled intercompany transactions. And I have to say that about a year and a half after we got ourselves set up with NetSuite, the NetSuite came out with an enhancement to their intercompany journal entries, and it's an advanced intercompany journal entry, which made the process basically a 2-step process instead of a 5-step process. And it's really worked out well for us.
That's great. That's great. And as far as the experience of the implementation, I mean, ERP is always a little complicated, a little challenging, and not for the faint of heart. Did it go fairly well for you all as you rolled this out globally?
Well, I like to say, yeah, if people ask me, can you use NetSuite out of the box? Sure. It's just not going to do for you everything that you want it to do. So, there's a great deal of consulting that needs to go on, and that's where Nuage was so helpful in getting in here and working with us to actually help us define our workflows, do all the scripting that was necessary, give us some instruction on how to customize forms, the whole gamut of things that you have to do when you set up a new ERP. And it had to be with somebody that we felt comfortable working with and had a real nice one-on-one relationship with, and that proved to be I mean, hey, we're still talking, right?
That's right. Well, Dan, I'm going to stop sharing if you want to come back on the screen here, because really that's all I wanted to cover from a slide deck, and we'll get into more of the fun questions about how everything's progressing so far.
Yeah, and I wanted to expand a little bit, if I could, just on some of the things that where Regulus cut its teeth over the years.
Sure.
You know, we do. If you see a soldier wearing it, we can provide it. You know, whether it's body armor, a helmet, visual augmentation, night vision devices, uh, thermal imaging, rangefinders. I mean, we're doing something right now with the Ukrainian armed forces that is to it's a rangefinder that they can use, and it's actually tied into a GPS system, and I mean, they can target something 10 miles away with this thing, and they can call in artillery to do whatever it is that they have to do. And they just love the way that it works. It's seamless. We also, some of the other things we do with visual augmentation is we supplied 5,000 night vision devices to Scotland Yard over the past, I guess it was 2017 and 18. And we get into a lot of political issues with some of the sales that we have, because so much of what we do sell is governed by the International Traffic and Arms Regulations, ITAR. So we're a licensed State Department broker and exporter, and it's got kind of funny because the powers that be in SOCOM couldn't figure out, that's the U.S. Special Operations Command. They didn't know why Scotland Yard needed night vision devices that were every bit as good as theirs. A whole lot of territorial things go on, and had to get the ambassadors of the two countries together to come together and kind of sort it out. But what it is that the terrorist activity in London is generally below ground. And you know, if you think about the history of London, it's just a city built upon a city, built upon a city, built upon a city. And some of those tunnels and everything underground are, they're pitch black. And so they needed something that they could move around and also be sure that they weren't taking out their own guys. And it's neat to work with the technology, but it's really, it's just a great feeling to know that you're doing something that helps fight bad stuff around the world. Yeah. We've also been kind of likened to, if you saw the movie War Dogs, we just did it legally. We haven't bought any Chinese bullets or anything like that. So, but that gives you an idea of what it is that we do. It is very complex. It's not easy a lot of the stuff that we deal in is not easy to find. We execute a contract with SOCOM back in 2014 and 15. Actually, it was a series of contracts. And this was all related to the fight in Syria when the Congress first allocated $500 million to go over there and assist in the training and equipping. Well, we did about a $20 million chunk of equipping, and it went really well. But what we learned out of it from a logistics standpoint, as it just prepared ourselves to so well for what we're going through right now, because we were chartering jumbo aircraft to move tons of material from Eastern Europe to Turkey or Afghanistan. We were also moving vehicles a lot. So we learned so much during that period of time. And we took our lumps during that. It's risky business, okay? And so we took our lumps, and I'm sorry about that phone. The beauty of it now is that we've gotten into this pandemic, and of course the need out there right now is for massive amounts of personal protective equipment. And you hear stories every single day about how you can't get it in, it's getting held up by the government, it's not coming through customs. And a lot of these stories are true. Most of it seems to be because customs doesn't seem to be aware of the fact that there's a pandemic in the country. And so, even when goods are coming in, they're sticking by their rules and regulations, and they're, I can't check this box, so we can't clear it. We have now been able to overcome those hurdles, but it's been difficult. We delivered our first load of gear back 2 Saturdays ago. It was for Centera Health Systems here in Virginia. It was about 50 tons of goods. Our second flight went into Houston for the Texas Department of Emergency Management with almost 100 tons of masks and gowns and these just things, they just take up so much space in these cargo planes. And we're talking these huge, massive, cargo carriers that are going up in the air. And, this is where we're seeing a lot of the price gouging that's taking place out there, because flights that would typically run us about $350,000 to $500,000 round trip are costing us 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 million. Everything's got to be prepaid. And that's one of the things that's been really nice about the NetSuite system and supporting this, is that we've been able to develop the system out so that we have a very accurate tracking of all our prepaid goods, all of our customer deposits that we get prepaid to us, of course, and being able to manage those and tie them back in directly to the invoicing or the accounts payable that we have. In fact, and again, this is true of any system. If garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Okay, and so if you don't set your sales order and your purchase order, everything else up properly, it won't work properly. But if you do it properly, as soon as that sales order is invoiced and there's a customer deposit on it, it immediately allocates it to the invoice. We don't even have to think about it. We obviously we double check and make sure it happened, but it just, there's a lot of time saving steps that are in there that suit our business very well. So it's been real interesting what we've been doing. I think that you were talking about how we have grown 500%. I could say we grew 500% and then we lost 80% of it last year. so much of what we do is we don't have long-term contracts that continue to generate revenue year after year after year. We're not on a TLS contract with the government or anything like that. So we're still working on an operating model where we have to go out and kill what we're going to eat, so to speak. And so it's very transaction oriented, and it's been difficult the foreign governments don't you think the U.S. government is a bureaucracy in and of itself. You go overseas, they do business completely differently. And it's just a challenge. They get all ready to go. It's they're banging you for quotes, they're banging you for adjustments, they're banging you for reducing costs, whatever. And then you get ready to sign the contract and you don't hear from them for another 8 weeks. And we had a little bit of that. Now, I will say this, the pandemic has been one of those things. It has, like I said earlier, it has virtually shut down that traditional international sales business that we were doing because, if you look at Saudi Arabia, which is one of our larger customers, between the oil crash and the fact that everybody's in lockdown, they really don't have money to spend. It's hard. I mean, they have money to spend, right, but the budgets aren't there to spend it anymore. So, we have to work through all of that. And again, the system has helped us, achieve that, I think, very well.
Do you think you'll continue do you think the global PPE market, what you're going to be supplying, is going to continue to grow based on these pandemics and the fact that it basically identified a very big gap in the U.S. and
in the supply chain. Yeah, I think we're already talking with the 5 major hospital groups in the state to do a kind of a centralized warehousing operation just for personal protective equipment, because this is one of the challenges that the U.S. government had with a lot of the product that they had in inventory. It's just been sitting there for years. I mean, some of the stuff was 20, 25 years old. It was, it deteriorates. It's fabric, okay? Yes, some of it has got polypropylene or polyethylene or something like that. Some of that, suits and the gowns like that, but it's also a fabric that deteriorates. It gets mold on it. It gets lots of things, and that's what the government was finding itself, having to pull out of stock, and that's when they really realized, I think, that they had a problem. So all of these things have to have an expiration date on them. They have to have some means of being able to turn that inventory that they're stockpiling over and out, to get it out of the warehouse. So if another pandemic does come around, that it's all good new product that's in there. And again, we just recently had a conference call with Nuage and with the head of procurement for Centero Health Systems and ourselves about what are the capabilities that NetSuite can bring to the table, and it can tag all these expiration dates. It can, we're not dealing with minimum order quantities or just-in-time stocking or anything like that, because this is going to be for a different purpose. And it's also going to give us a portal for each one of the hospital groups. And I would imagine that the Virginia Department of Emergency Management Services and similar are going to want to get in on the game also, and we can create a portal for them to go in and see exactly what they have in inventory at any given time, which is kind of unique to the software, I think. It's being cloud-based. All you got to do is give folks an access code to sign in, log in, and it only gives them the ability to view. And then only gives them the ability to view what's theirs, which is the most important part. So there's no crossover of each other's information going to, they may be hospitals, but they're still in it to make a few bucks, so they don't want to know everybody else is doing.
What?
So we see, and we continue to think that the logistics are going to be an issue. The other thing that we have to think about too is we focus on the United States here, which has obviously got the greatest problem that's been, I guess, revealed. I mean, I think there's other countries that are in worse shape than we are. They just don't report the numbers the way we do. But we're sure, based upon our conversations with countries in Mexico, like Mexico, Guatemala, Panama, Chile, Brazil, that they're starting to scramble because the cases are starting to rise, and so you're starting to see this wave starting to roll into the southern hemisphere now, I think. So, and again, that's getting to be the cooler time of the year down there. They're going into fall, and then winter, which is, I think they're just going to find themselves in a real need. But at least now we've got the logistics or the supply chain kind of nailed down. We still have production problems. And I think where the country's going to go, though, is they're going to realize we can't rely on China for everything. And that's what we've been doing. Everybody that's out there, if you listen to anybody who's in this business right now, they're trying to source all of this stuff from China. We can talk all day long about 3M making these these N95 masks, or the 3-ply mask, or GM and old Ford making ventilators and all. But at the end of the day, the primary sourcing for everything is coming out of China. They have just huge factories over there that can produce 500,000 masks a day. And I think we're going to start seeing some of that production come back into the U.S. because they do hold us hostage.
Yeah, there's certain things that, or what do you call them? They're required for us to function as a country. Agriculture is always one. Growing up in a small town in South Georgia, farming is very important to make sure we can feed the country in the event of something like this. So
yeah, you got to have to keep those things moving. The other thing is, and we had some experience doing this in the last 6 months. We set up 3 mobile hospitals, as the best of mass units, if you will, in Senegal, Mongolia, and Ghana. And one of our employees here, Brad, he's got a tremendous background. He's a former medic, was assigned to Dev Group, SEAL Team 6, did that for a few years, spent worked for ACOM, which is a big defense contractor, for a few years, and he spent a lot of time working in Africa doing the Ebola containment units, which are it's a virus just like anything else, and that one's more of a spreading by bodily fluids as opposed to being an aerosol type thing. But the same concept works as it relates to these corona containment units as well. And so we have been able to make some inroads doing some of those as well. And I really see everybody's going to have to be prepared for this going forward. And I think that's what we're going to be able to start serving the needs of as we go forward.
Yeah, and along those lines, just something that's on the top of everybody's mind is, Zoom went from 30 million daily users to 300. How's it been transitioning to the work from home model, and how has the cloud helped that?
I got to tell you, it's been seamless. You kind of look around, you have to wonder if everybody needs to be here or not. I'm not sure how much. Let's put it this way: what's needing to get done is getting done. That's the first part. Now, is anything else getting done? That's kind of hard to monitor. But it's not impacting our ability to move our goods, and it changes constantly. But we have been using different technology to make sure. We've been using Zoom for some of our meetings. We've been using WhatsApp for a lot of our communications back and forth. I'm one of those guys. I'm probably the old school guy here. I just send me an email. I'm fine with that. I don't need all these other things. But everybody just loves WhatsApp, and so we've gotten used to it, and we've set up little groups that if it's talking about continental U.S. stuff, CONUS, that's one group, and then if it's operations, it's another group. And so depending on which group you're wanting to interact with, we're able to communicate that way without sending out a blast email to everybody in the company who may not be necessary to be using it. But these types of this webinar is a great example of the types of things we're able to do it internally, so that everybody can see each other. We know what's going on, and actually, I would think because of everybody recognizes that there's the possibility of a communication breakdown when you're working remotely, and it's so much more prevalent that everybody's working that much harder to make sure that there isn't a breakdown in communication. So I really think communications is better right now than it was when everybody was all sitting in the building, if that makes any sense at all. I guess it's human nature. I don't know, but it's I'm glad it's working out well. We miss them. We want them to come back again. We want them to come back healthy. But I mean, like I said, we're doing a volume right now that we've never seen. We'll do 3 or 4 years worth of revenues this year.
Wow. Just with this transition to the PPE model and
yeah.
How do you envision, and this is more operational, just the logistic quagmires that might come up and how you adapt to them of trying to procure the PPE both here and overseas and moving them around the world as the demand has spiked. And unfortunately, I'm a believer that we're going to have a second wave in the fall here in the States, and probably in a lot of your warmer cultures where we're going to open up, and then we're going to have kind of like the Spanish flu. There's going to be another big outbreak, which may be worse than what we've seen today. How are you preparing to manage the different aspects that might come along as demand spikes?
Well, one of the advantages right now, we're actually having to tell folks no. I mean, once you land the first plane, everybody wants to talk to you, So the busiest guys around here are our CEO and Brad, who are fielding most of this and then passing it down for other people to execute. But it's opening up so many doors with people we never would have talked to before. And we're able to use them. We get them into we don't use the CRM system in NetSuite the way we could or should. And again, it's because we don't do a whole lot of knocking on doors, if you will, sales approach, where you've got to make sure that you do all these follow-ups. But as a means of maintaining a pipeline, means of maintaining a database of prospects, It's great. So when the time does come, and if there's going to be another wave and it's going to pick up, we're already going to be set with these people to reach out. What do you need? Are you seeing it coming there? You goes, you think the impact's going to be high, low, whatever. Start having those conversations early and start getting those orders in early. Hopefully that everybody by this time will have started doing some stockpiling, if you will, not unnecessary stockpiling, but having enough on hand that in case something comes up, then they can have the material that they need on hand so that they can start the ordering process. I really, even with the second wave coming in, I don't think any of us are really thinking it's not going to be as massive a need as it is right now. Okay, so that's a good thing. We'll have all of our parts already built into the system. Changing prices is so easy, within NetSuite, whether you do it manually or do it as an upload. And that's been really good right now because the prices are changing constantly for the product that we're selling. Constantly. Right now, you're going to hear a lot of hospitals saying, "I need level 2 gowns," which is a it's a fabric. It's a polyester fabric with a polypropylene lining. Okay, which is a waterproof barrier. And it's the biggest thing in demand right now, and we can't get them because the fabric just isn't out there. It's something that has to be, the two pieces of fabric have to be heat sealed together. It's a little bit longer process, and I see that as maybe being a sticking point going forward. I don't think anybody's ever going to be without a level 2 gown again. Give you an idea, level 1 gown is what you wear when you go to the doctor and they tell you to put this on. We can get all those we want, but nobody wants them. But the level 2s have been a real shortage, and this is going to give the supply chain opportunity to catch up.
There you go. Okay. Well, we've got about 5 minutes left, open it up to any questions. Did anybody wants to ask Dan? Obviously, he's got a ton of experience and very interesting background with this. One question was, sounds like Virginia is proactively looking to procure medical equipment on a large scale for their hospitals. Are you seeing the same things in other states?
Yeah, we've got a contract right now with Navant Health Systems out of North Carolina, and of course, we're in Virginia Beach, and I'm about 8 miles from the North Carolina line down here, so we kind of all just look at it as just one area. So we want to support North Carolina in any way we can. We've had conversations with Maryland and their hospitals up there. First and foremost, we want to take care of Virginia because we are a Virginia company. But that doesn't mean that we won't work with anybody, even included. We've got an order right now for 2 million of these KN95 masks for Mexico, who they have nothing. The president down there has been very reluctant to say that there's a crisis, and now they're realizing they've got a bigger problem than they thought they actually had, and now they're scrambling. So I see this going on just for a little while longer, but so there's a lot of hospitals out there that are looking to work with us. Like I said, when you land the first plane, everybody wants to talk. You have a supply chain now. Let me talk to you. I need to know what I can get. That's right. Well, the hard thing for a while there was just getting the goods out of China. I mean, a lot of people were saying that they could get them out, and but they, a lot of these people that go out and say, "Oh, I can get you this, I can get you this, I can get you this," it's like a second or third tier broker. All he's doing, he's going to another guy, who knows a guy in China. All right, and we actually have a direct relationship with the factories in China that are producing all of this. So really our biggest challenge is getting things through customs. One of the things I wanted to add about the functionality of NetSuite also, if you are in a compliant-driven market and world, which we are, and there are certain things we cannot buy and we cannot sell unless we have a license to do it. our compliance department has on any international order has to be a part of that sales order approval process before it can go any further. All right. I mean, it just stops. You can't issue a purchase order. You can't do. I mean, it gets done because it gets overridden by either myself or the CEO, but but it's done for the right reason. But it stops. There's no way that we're going to export something to anyone that hasn't already been approved by the U.S. government.
And they have to be on that approved list.
So there's lots of checks and balances.
Yeah, and I did that talk with Chris a couple years ago about the ITAR and all of those. You have to have the license to sell it, and then you have to have they have the ability to export it to them as an approved state government, or not state, but approved by the Secretary of State or whatever.
It's the State Department, right? So yeah, it's worked out well. But I really start to see this pandemic has been a transformation to our business. We will no longer function the way we did prior. Okay, I mean, it's no longer going to be purely transactional. It's no longer going to be, taking these laundry list of items. A contract that's got 200 line items on them, which is some things that we have done, and try to manage a sales order with 200 line items on it that are all going to different directions. It's the ease of being able to change things within NetSuite that has made it very useful for us to accomplish what we've accomplished so far.
To really adapt to this massive change, and without really having to alter NetSuite, you're just using the platform that is flexible and capable of handling all these different scenarios.
Correct. Yep.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us today. If there's any additional questions, you can ask us in the chat. Glenn or Lewis can go ahead and get those answered for you. Dan, thanks for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you all very much.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks,
you
Dan.
all as well. Take care.
And Glenn, if you want to just quickly tell people where they can learn more about Nuage and connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn, Glenn Saunders, partner at Nuage, as well as Nuage Consulting Group. You can find us online. Louis is very active on LinkedIn as well. We'd love to chat with you about how we can help, how we've helped companies like Regulus, and just the power of NetSuite and cloud infrastructure, and being able to access your information anywhere in one system to manage the entire business.
Wonderful. If both you and Louis could throw your LinkedIn URLs into the chat, that'd be great, just so it's easily accessible for people, as well as Nuage has a booth today as well. So if you want to jump by, learn some additional information or chat with them there, feel free. Thanks so much, Glenn.
Thanks, Josh.
Bye.